What is going on, fight fans? Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Boxing. I'm your host, Jeff, man. This is episode 5. We're going to call this one the Year of the Super Fights, man. Just what an incredible year for boxing. 7 months in, and I've had to say, man, this has been one of the most exciting years I've ever seen in boxing. With all the big fights happening. It would take a lot of fans probably back to the 80s. I was not old enough at that time. I was just still a kid in the 80s. So I can't really speak for all the action that happened in the 80s in boxing, but I would have to say that this year definitely is living up to that type of hype, man. Uh, Getting big fight after big fight, big weekend. And I mean, even a weekend like this, I mean, come on, man. We got the Inoue Fulton fight on a Tuesday. We got the Estrada fight, Sinista Estrada fight on a Friday, and then you got the Crawford Spence fight on a Saturday. I mean, we are filling every weekend with a big fight, and then putting in a super fight at least once a month. There's a super fight going on, and it's the fights everybody's been wanting to see. And we'll talk about the two domino pieces that I think set this whole thing into effect, man. A lot of people give credit other places. A lot of people throw out there who they think really started all this domino effect in boxing to really wake these guys up, let the promoters see the money that was in the big fights, and the money that could be made off these pay per views and all that kind of stuff, man. So, I mean, like I said, we'll talk about those domino effects. But what we do on this show, man, what do? We drink bourbon, baby. We drink bourbon. Today's bourbon, I showcase what I'm drinking every week with you guys. This couldn't be a better find for me. Looking around, taking my time, really deciding what bourbon do I want this week, man. What really stands out? I want something different. I want bourbon's bourbon. I love bourbon, but some is smooth, and some is a little bit of rough. I've had a couple shots already, but as I fucked up my last taping, like it sucked, man. I was almost all the way through the whole goddamn taping and hit one fucking button and stopped the recording, so that fucked me over. But like I said, man, I hunted for just the perfect bourbon, man, and something told me to keep looking. Every time I started to settle on something, my eye went somewhere else, and I started looking, and I kept looking, and I kept looking, and then bam, baby, I came across what is known as Puncher's Chance Bourbon, straight bourbon out of Kentucky. And what a better find than a Puncher's Chance, man. It talks about having the heart of the heart, you know, being there every day, year in and year out type of person on the back of it. That's the type of bourbon it is. It's a traditional bourbon. Two traditions in America, bourbon and fighting, baby. Can't get any better than that, man. So that's the whiskey I chose for the week. I thought perfect choice, man. Puncher's Chance to really end this week with what I mean. How can we end it with a better fight, man? Like I said, but we can't start the show until we take a shot of bourbon. All right, so let's take this shot of bourbon. That's a little bit more shot than what I normally take because I usually have shot glasses. I try to, you know, put the little shot glasses up, but can't find those glasses, so I had to go to this one. So let's call this double shot for fuck a triple weekend, man. Fuck, this weekend's been awesome. Woo! All right, man. I will compare this to the bullet that I drank last week. It's not real smooth going down, but I like it, and for the price, $29.99, it's really good. But also remember to uh, drink responsibly, people. Don't be an idiot out drinking and driving. Be a weirdo like me, sat in your basement talking to a camera and pretend like people give a fuck about what you have to say. I mean, you know what I mean? Don't be an idiot. We'll give that a round of applause. It definitely deserves it. But like I said, man, let's jumpstart what happened last weekend. Let's jump into the fights of last weekend. The Cabosa versus Maxie Hughes fight. Uh, Man, once again, boxing with some controversy. Maxie Hughes, who most people think won that fight, what I had seen looked like he had the fight, but I also knew that there was no way he was going to get that decision in that fight. If it came down to a decision, that they weren't going to give him that because Top Rank put a lot of money into George Kambosos. That's a fact. Uh, and 3 fights is basically fighter. 3 losses in a row is almost suicide in boxing. You know, you lose 3 in a row, and you can pretty much say your career's over with. At that point, it's not like you can't come back from that, and you can't go on to have a good career, but it's going to be a lot harder to come back from 3 straight losses, especially when Top Rank just put money into the guy. So I knew the decision was not going to go to Maxie Hughes. I knew that. Max Hughes and his team should have known that coming in. They should have said, "Look, you're not going to get the decision. You know that." And and that's right there. That's another part of boxing, and that's what I hear people say. Oh, it's just part of the sport, man. You even hear boxers say it. It's just part of the sport, man. You can't control the judging. You can't control the refs. You can only control what you do in that ring. And they're right to a point. But you can control the judging by doing a boxing reform, holding these guys accountable for shitty ass judge cards, for shitty ass decisions, for choosing George Kambosos over Maxie Hughes in a fight that they know George probably didn't win. And it wasn't like a dominant performance where George got his ass kicked, Kambosos didn't get his ass kicked. But I mean, the fact is, he lost that fight. And a guy like Maxie Hughes, he gets screwed over. He just won 7 straight fights after losing a couple. And, he fought his ass off to get back to that eliminator status, to get back to having an opportunity to be a contender once again. And judges robbed him of it. And I'm not going to sit here and boo-hoo for Maxie. And I'm not going to boo-hoo about the fight overall. I'm just going to preach that get the fucking shit done, man. Get a boxing reform done. Get a unionization. Get fighters unionized, man. Tim Bradley, he went off about it at the end of that fight. He went absolutely off about it. Now, he backpedaled in the Inoue Fulton fight after being asked about it. He backpedaled on every fucking thing he said. Of course, Top Rank probably told him to tone it down, watch what he was saying, all that fucking shit. And of course he backed down from everything he said. Pretty much said, "Oh well, it was a close fight. It sucks to lose, but you lose." But originally he had said, "Look, this is bullshit. Maxie Hughes was the clear winner. We watch highway robbery. This judging shit is getting out of hand, and fighters need to unionize." He said it on there, and Charlo said it, just about a month ago, talked about the same thing. I said it on episode, 3 of The Sweet Science, that in my podcast. I said it then, which was sometime earlier in the year, around April. I had a boxing reform episode where I talked about that. Like, fighters, and we don't just need to reform boxing by having a committee that holds the judges responsible, but we need the fighters to unionize, to take boxing to the next level, to take it into the next generation, the next era, and to be able to compete against a UFC who puts on amazing fights week in and week out, right? Big fight after big fight. And we're going to see, man, that this is a big week for UFC and a big week for boxing. Supposedly, there's a big super fight going on in the UFC. So we're going to see who tunes into what, man. This is going to be, in my opinion, if you're boxing, you're going to see where you stand this weekend. How many people are going to tune in to Crawford and Spence compared to how many people are going to tune in to Dustin Poirier, and I can't remember the guy he's fighting, because I don't know shit about the UFC. I just know the name Dustin Poirier. A few other fighters, John Jones, McGregor, those guys, of course, in the sport, but I'm not a big UFC fan. And not that I'm not a fan, I just don't watch it, so I can't tell you shit about it. I don't like talking about something I don't watch, pretending I know about something I don't watch. And I don't watch it. That's why I don't talk about it on my show. But this weekend, man, you're going to see who is the top dog. Is the UFC absolutely dominating boxing, even though boxers are getting paid more? You know what I mean? The UFC organization, it's an organization like the NFL. It's an organized sport. The UFC is not. Like, mixed martial arts is the sport. UFC is the brand. Most people know that. But where's it at? Is UFC bigger? That much bigger than boxing? We're gonna find out this weekend who tunes into what fight, who gets higher viewership. I think boxing really needs to pay attention to that. And if they get outdone by the UFC, maybe you need to look into bringing a guy like Dana White in to help reform the sport as far as getting it a little bit more organized. And with boxing being a worldwide sport, it's going to make it a lot harder to get everybody on the same page. So obviously, you're not going to be able to do a worldwide, committee. You're going to have to start here in the States, and you're going to have to organize a committee here in the States, and who are going to hold judges accountable, who's going to allow the fighters to unionize, who is not going to allow promoters, managers, and platforms to control every aspect of the sport. Yes, they are a big part of the sport. They bring the money to the sport. They give you the platform to fight on. They showcase your product. They give you the opportunity to sell your tickets and all that stuff. So not saying that you eliminate those companies, those promoters, those platforms, managers, things like that, because they do have a job that they do in the sport. But I think it's gotten to the point to where they have too much invested interest, like this Kambosa versus Hughes fight. We all knew going down to a decision, no way in hell were they gonna give Maxie Hughes that decision. We all knew that. George Kambosa was the big investment. So if it came down to that, and if you left any questions on the table, so that could have been a 50-50 fight, that, George might have been able to win that one, then you left the door open for him to actually win that fight, for them to be able to allow you to really rob you. The only thing Maxie Hughes really could have done was probably knock out Kambosa, or knock him down and beat him in a convincing manner to where you could not. There's no way you could have robbed him. But he didn't do that. He did dominate with his big right hand, but it was pretty much all he had. I've said it before. George Kambosa is not a top level fighter. He's not a contender. He's not. I don't think he will ever in his continued existence in boxing, will he ever be at a contender, level? Will he ever grab those belts back? I don't see that happening, because if Haney decided to relinquish the belts, which he has now moved up to 140 and taken on the Regis fight, is what I'm hearing now, is what I've been hearing actually. I think he just announced it on ESPN Plus. So I don't know exactly how that works, if he's going to just do a one-fight deal with Matchroom, and then he's going to do a one-fight deal with ESPN Plus if he wins the Regis fight to take on Lopez and unify that division, which, come on, unify two divisions, that's pretty fucking impressive. So I don't know if he has to relinquish those belts moving up, or if he can still slide up and down to try to defend the belts like Canelo does. Canelo does that, so why couldn't he do that? If Canelo can move up and down and not lose his belts, then, I feel like Haney should be able to do the same thing. Even though I don't think he should continue to fight at 135. It's too much on him and too much on his body to go back and forth. I say relinquish those belts and let guys like Shakur and Tank, who should be the 1 and 2 in the lightweight, 1 and 2 in the lightweight. How the fuck you got Loma as the number one contender blows my mind because he doesn't. I don't give a fuck if you guys think he won that last fight if he got robbed. He didn't. It was a 50-50 fucking fight. You could have gave it to either guy, and I wouldn't have been disappointed. To say, all right, both did enough to win that fight. But I think Devin Haney won that fight. I think he did more. He took more. He went to the body more, and did something nobody really did on Loma. And I think that was enough for him to win that fight. And Loma didn't do enough to really showcase that he won that fight. Everybody, he was a busier fighter. He looks like the busier fighter, man. His footwork and his punches and bunches make him look like a more active fighter, obviously. But that doesn't mean that because we feel sorry for the guy that we're going to make him the number one contender in lightweight when he doesn't fucking deserve to be the number one contender in lightweight when he just took that L. You lost. Move the fuck down. Let the next guy move up. Which should obviously be Tank fucking Davis. How you don't have how do you not have Tank as the number one contender? Are you guys smoking like massive amounts of weed? I smoke a lot of weed, but I'm not that stupid to think that Tank isn't the number one contender in that division, and that if Haney took on the next guy, it would have to be Tank, and then after that, I clearly think it's Shakur Stevenson, who was the second best, our third best in that division. And I think, I don't know if he would have the power to, or the experience really, to take down Devin Haney. I think Shakur's biggest issue is he lacks the true potential as an experience as far as the level of the guys that he's actually fought. He hasn't beaten anybody of a sound name, anybody that you would be like, oh man, he dominated this guy. He's looked good in every fight that he's had, but the level of competition hasn't been up to his level. He's one of those, like I said, he's a top 3 guy in the lightweight division. So I think Loma, if you want to put Loma at number 4, be my guess. He's definitely not number 1. You guys are smoking entirely too much goddamn weed if you think that guy is the number 1 contender in the lightweight division. But like I said, man, that was a highway robbery, as we like to call it. Somebody gets the name of that truck. They just ran over Maxie Hughes, backed him up, ran over him again, said, screw you. And then we watched his hot wife cry about it also. Don't want to get too personal there. I don't want that guy coming after me, kicking my ass. But hey, your wife was hot, dude. But anyways, man, that's a tough loss. And if you unionize a sport, if you unionize boxing, these guys have something to fall back on. Maxie Hughes has now got to start completely over in his career to try to rebuild himself back up to contender, to an eliminator fight, to another eliminator fight. And it may take him years to do that. And in boxing, guys don't always have years, man. They got the now. He may never have that now again. But he was robbed Saturday of that opportunity. And like I said, man, hats off to him. He fought the winning fight. It sucks that happens. And it sucks because what can he do about it? Money talks, bullshit walks, man. Like I said, if Top Rank came to him next week and said, hey, we want to set you up with a fight in 3 months and we're going to pay you $1 million, forget about that loss to Cabosa. You're going to go fight this other guy, another decent fight. He'd take it, because what other choice do you have? It should be a committee to where you can appeal that loss. And you don't want to get, I don't want to get to the point in boxing either. I don't want to make a committee and then every fight is being appealed. I thought my guy could have won it, and every decision is being appealed. I think you have to have a committee that would overlook that and overall say, look, no, that's not an appeal type fight. But if it's an obvious, the judges were scoring this shit off the wall, then I think it's an obvious that you would have to appeal that fight or have the opportunity to appeal a fight so that you could get that overturned and you don't have that bad loss on your record and you could still continue to be the number 1 contender. But in my opinion, George Cabosa is definitely not the fucking number 1 contender. I don't give a shit if he held the belts. he is a Larry, not a Larry Holmes, goddamn Buster Douglas. He's a Buster Douglas, man. The guy's a good boxer, but he took advantage. He took advantage of an opportunity he was given, and he made the best of it. And he somehow came out on top that night over Lopez, who I still think is a better fighter than him. If they fought again, I think Lopez whoops the shit out of this guy. But on that night, Kambosos was better, and he got the titles. I knew he was going to lose them immediately if it was Loma, Haney, or whoever the fuck else he fought, Stevenson, Tank. They were going to take those belts from him. And that's what happened. Haney just put an ass whooping for 2 fights on him. And the second fight was even a bigger ass whooping than the first fight. So I don't see him as a top contender. Don't think he deserves to be up there as a top contender. And, I've said what I need to say about that fight, man. Let's move on to the Tuesday fight, Inoue and Fulton. I mean, come on, folks. We were blessed with a Tuesday fight, thanks to Japan, who weirdly enough thought Tuesday night's a great night to have a big blockbuster fight. I don't know anything about Japan. If Tuesday's like their Friday or some shit, I don't know what their days of the week are like. If they work, every day and then everybody's off on Tuesday or some shit. So they decided, hey, let's have this big fight on Tuesday. I thought, why not have that fight Saturday morning because it's in Tokyo, Japan. And why not have that fight early in the morning, right? 9 o'clock in the morning. Give boxing fans an all-day super fight fucking event, man, to where you're going to have, the Inoue Fulton fight that morning, and that's going to lead you up to about 12 o'clock before that main card happened, right? And then you're going to take a break, go get some snacky snacks, go hang out with the family, have plenty of time to still go do some family events that day, and then get back home in time to watch the Crawford versus Spence fight that night and have an all-day fun-filled boxing style event. I think boxing missed out on an opportunity to have pretty much a super day, man, a super fight day. And they could have sold it as that. Super fight Saturday. You know what I mean? With a good early fight with Inoue. But Japan, like I said, I don't know their culture. I don't know how they do things over there. But Tuesday night must be a party night for them guys because they decided Tuesday night was a good night to have a super fight on. And I won't say it was a super fight, but a hell of a fight. A big, big blockbuster fight at least. Even if we're not calling it a super fight, Inoue versus Fulton was definitely a big blockbuster fight. But Japan decided, hey, we're going to have that fight on a Tuesday night. Okay, so anyways, Tuesday morning here in the States, I had an opportunity to watch that fight. I was off work that day. I got off at 5 a.m., so I didn't have to go into my second job all week. I had the vacation week. So I took advantage of it, man, and I got to watch that Inoue Fulton fight. And, God, I'd have to say the undercard, there's not much to talk about. It was, fight 1, knockout, fight 2, knockout, fight 3, knockout, co-main event, knockout, and then main event. Of course, ended with Inoue knocking out Fulton. But on the co-main event, they had the Robesius Ramirez, a young up-and-coming guy who I'd heard so much about. A lot of hype around this guy. I was impressed with his power, but I was not impressed with his ring IQ. Was impressed with his defense. He has really good defense. He has great power, but he's an overall headhunter. So, in my opinion, he could have eliminated that guy a lot sooner if you go to the body. I like to call it chopping down a tree. You start with the body, and you hit down low, and you chop away. And the minute that top opens up, you chop that top, man. He didn't do that. He just headhunted most of the fight. He did get the knockout, of course, but it took him a lot longer than what it should have. That fight should have been over 3 or 4 rounds if he would have went to the body a little bit more. His footwork was pretty decent, but he seemed to throw 4 or 5 punches at a time, and then he would slow down. His stamina would go down. So even when he would hurt the guy, he would slow down after throwing 4 or 5 punches, lose stamina, and then that would give the guy opportunity to recover, in rounds that he did have him hurt before he was able to knock him out. But I think the guy just got tired of getting punched with big punch after big punch. At one point, he said, fuck this, I'm going down. I'm not going to get back up. But overall, impressed with the guy's power. Not so impressed with the, overall skill. He's young. He's got a lot to learn. If he thinks he's going to go up against an experienced guy and fight that same way to where he just throws punches and bunches and he slows down and he loses, I think you're going to get a guy who's going to play good defense, get on that bike, ride it a little bit, let this guy wear himself down, and then, be able to take him out in the later rounds when he's wore down even more after throwing a flurry of punches, which he likes to do. And he headhunts, so he makes it obvious that, he's going to go to your head, so you're automatically going to protect your head. And, if he starts to go to your body, that's a chance I think you're going to take against a guy like that. But overall, I think you could wear him out and then, get him wore down in the later rounds. And that's where he's going to find trouble, is the more experienced fighters. But going on to the main card of that fight, of course, Inoue versus Fulton. Come on, guys. This fight, just when you say a guy has every absolute skill and ability that could be gifted to you in boxing, Inoue has all of that. When I say he has amazing footwork, he's got amazing speed, he's got amazing power, he's got amazing counter punching, and he's a very aggressive fighter. They call him the monster, and if you watch that fight, you're saying to yourself, this guy's a fucking monster, man. He really was. Fulton is catching so much shit on social media about his performance. But anybody who is a boxing fucking fan, anybody who knows anything about boxing, you watch that fight, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that Fulton could have done. Everything that he trained for, every game plan that he had was gone after the first round. And it was now survival mode, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round. I think he got knocked down to 7th. So for 7 rounds, after the first round, 6 rounds after, this guy's just in defensive mode, trying to survive and trying to figure out how he can throw punches without being countered, because Inoue was not only displaying his power, but his aggression and his ring IQ were probably the most impressive thing that I actually saw on Tuesday. That made me just, wow, this fucking guy is on a different level, man. He's up there with Fury. He's up there with Canelo. He's up there with Tank Davis. He's up there with Shakur Stevenson. He's up there with the Crawfords, the Spences. That level. There's levels to this game, man. And Inoue is on that top level. Is he a pound for pound number 1? Fuck, after that fight Tuesday, it's hard for me to say, not to say that he's not the number 1 pound for pound. You can argue Crawford is, or Spence is. You can argue that that Canelo is. You can say Fury is. And even though a lot of people don't put Fury on his list, on that list, which I don't get that, because I'm sorry, there's nobody in the heavyweight division beating Fury. Even the Usyk fans, you guys can have all that hype in your head that, Usyk could beat Fury. No, he can't, bro. The size difference will be the main factor in that fight, and I promise you, Usyk will not win that fight. But getting onto that, Inoue, footwork, power, his stamina, his aggressiveness, the cutting off the ring, and not only being the aggressive fighter and making the other fighter fight on his back foot, but also trapping the guy. the entire fight. You're making him fight backwards in a defensive mode. And it's to the point to where the guy can't even defend himself going backwards. That he's constantly got his hands up because he's constantly being attacked. And he doesn't have time to make one mistake before he's got a punch being thrown at him. And then how he would just cut the ring off on Fulton and get him in that corner and then pow, 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 start landing a barrage of power punches on him. And then every single time Fulton would start to throw any type of barrage of punches, any type of combinations, he would be countered with big punches. And everybody on the internet, oh man, his trainer's shit. He should be fired. This guy's garbage. That's the one thing about boxing that gets on my nerves with the fans. Stop when a guy loses one fight, is he now garbage? Like, shut up with that stupid shit, man. That undefeated shit is overrated in my opinion. You can still be the greatest to ever box and have 1, 2, 3 losses on your record. I mean, Pacquiao's an incredible fighter. We watched him get knocked out several fucking times. I mean, Marquez knocked him out. Probably one of the most vicious knockouts I'd ever seen in my life. They had to use smelling salt on Pacquiao. Is Pacquiao garbage? Do you not consider Pacquiao a great fighter? Fuck yeah, he's one of the greatest to ever fight. There's no question about it. But he's lost several times, and that doesn't take away from what he's done in his career. And the same thing for Fulton. Fulton took on a fight against a guy he knew. I think deep down in his heart, as a fighter, I'm not going to say he thought he was going to lose, man. I'm not going to say that. I'm sure he had all the confidence in the world that he had a chance in that fight, that he had a chance. But he didn't. He didn't have a chance at all, and we saw it after round 1. He didn't stand a chance. I saw it immediately, man. I said it immediately I said, man, this guy knows he doesn't stand a chance to win this fight. It's not going to happen. And, you can't fault him. He was a champion. He took on the top contender. And not just the top contender, many, many, many people's pound for pound number 1 fighter in a way. And he took that challenge. When a lot of guys, 95% of the guys in boxing would have ran from that. They would have held on to their belts and went and laid down in the corner and said, no, I'm going to take my mandatory fight against Pablo Escobar. And we're like, who the fuck is this guy? Oh, he's a mandatory. He's number 1 contender. How the fuck is this guy the number 1 contender? You don't know. But that's who most guys would have went after. And they would have been, well, it's mandatory, bro. I got to take the fight. I can't fight anyway right now. Fulton didn't do that. He immediately accepted the challenge. There were no hesitations. There were no fight negotiations fell through. These guys agreed immediately to fight each other. So hats off to both of those guys. Fulton for taking that fucking fight and that ass whooping. You're still a great fighter. You're still going to have a great career. So I don't think you have anything to worry about there. But let's talk about Inoue's performance, which was just absolutely ridiculous, man. And now you got to put him up there. I hear people saying, fight Tank next. You can't fight Tank next. That's too much in between. You know what I mean? He's not going to go from 122 to 130 and there is no catch weight, in my opinion. So let's not go over the top with stupid shit like, oh, he should fight Tank next, Inoue and Tank next. No, that's too much of a gap. Let this guy enjoy being the bantamweight champ at the time. He'll unify that division. He'll move up. And eventually he may get to 135. But by the time that guy gets to the lightweight division, I don't think Tank is going to be in that division. I think Tank's going to be at the 140. He's proven he can fight there. He has no issues with fighting at 140. You guys can talk about he drained Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia wasn't as good as y'all fucking thought he was. And I told y'all his flaw was absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. He had one of the worst flaws in boxing dropping that fucking hand every time you threw the big right. Just an obvious flaw that I don't know how Goossen didn't fix. As a boxing fan and as a boxer, that would make me question Joe Goossen. And honestly, that would make me think twice about having that guy as a trainer. That was an obvious flaw. I can guarantee Derek James has already fixed that flaw. I can guarantee that next fight that Ryan Garcia has, he's not going to make that same fucking mistake, dude. I can guarantee it. Derek James is too good. Guarantee he addressed that immediately and made it clear that, hey, that's something we're going to fix immediately. So I don't think you see that same issue with Ryan again. But I do think that he's not as good as what a lot of people think he is. I don't think he has the heart or the chin for the sport. I think he loves the attention, the glamour, all that fun shit. But, I think he was just kind of an overhyped guy. But let's not get off track too much. I got off track there. Started mumbling about some bullshit about Ryan Garcia. But let's get back into. I just watched the Estrada fight. Estrada just won her fight tonight. I'll get more into that as I said. I didn't get much of a chance to actually watch it. My wife's on vacation, so I was spending some time with her tonight after getting off work, and then came down to do the show. So I caught some of the co-main event, not a lot, and then started doing my show around the time the Estrada fight happened. I do know Estrada came out on top in that fight. I don't know much about it. I'll get into that next week on that fight as I break it down. But, of course, we want to get into the Spence Crawford fight, man. And at the beginning of the show, I talked about the domino effect. What I thought started all the entire year of 2023 being super fights. And all these big fights finally coming together. I called it the domino effect. There were two pieces that started all this, man. Two pieces that started this domino effect. 2017, you had Deontay Wilder on top of the boxing heavyweight world, known as the biggest puncher. Could have had any fight he wanted. Turned down an Anthony Joshua fight. For some reason, he reached out to Tyson Fury, I guess to challenge himself, whatever he was trying to do there. But wake a sleeping giant, as you could call it. But he reached out to him, man, and he made it clear, get your shit together. We'll make this fight happen, I promise you. And Fury must have took notice to it. He did. And he started training, getting back into shape. At that time, he'd been out of the ring for over 2 years, out of shape, doing a lot of partying in the limelight. Ended up going to rehab, doing a lot more training and taking it a lot more serious. Of course, Deontay Wilder held up to his word, and he made that fight happen. And, of course, in 2018, we got the first Fury-Wilder fight. I think that was the first super fight, man. If you guys don't think that was a super fight, you're crazy. I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, Fury, even being out of the ring, everybody knew that if this guy ever came back to boxing and he fully committed himself to boxing like he should, then he was going to easily be the number one guy in boxing. 6'9", he's a monster, man. And there's outside of Wilder at 6'7", there's not a lot of guys that can challenge him with that size ratio. But they made the fight happen in 2018, man. We watched a blockbuster fucking fight. We watched a hell of a fight, an exciting fight. We watched Fury get knocked out. We watched him get knocked out. I'm not going to lie. I think Deontay Wilder won that first fight. That was definitely not a split decision fight. That was a Wilder win, in my opinion. And he slept Fury. He was out cold before the ref decided to wake him up. But that led to 2 more big super fights between those guys. And, man, the money and the tension that brought, that woke up a lot of the other fighters. Now, of course, nobody was jumping in 2021, 2022 to take on those big fights. Everybody was on the internet talking. Nah, 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 nah. But nobody was doing any fighting. They were all like a bunch of chirping chickens. And In 2022, my expectations for the sport of boxing, I said, man, this is going to be the year we're going to get Spence Crawford. We're going to get all these big fights, man. We're going to get everyone we want. We're going to get it, bro. It didn't happen. 2022 turned out to be just an absolute disappointment. I was extremely butthurt that half those fights didn't even fucking happen. We still got some decent fights, but we didn't get what we wanted as boxing fans, what we knew the potential was, what we could get, what we were being denied as fans. So 2022 let me down, and I just said, look, man, 2023's got to be the fucking year, man. Something's got to give. And then at the end of 2022, Benavidez and Plant announced that they would fight in February, and I was like, holy shit, here we go. That's what I'm looking for, man. Starting the year out with a big bang. And that fight was great. Benavidez and Caleb Plant took an ass whooping, man, and didn't go down. Great fucking fight. But that started it. Then we got the Ryan Tank fight. Then we got the Haney Loma fight. Of course, we started out the year with Cabosa and Haney. But to me, that wasn't a super fight because Cabosa's not on that fucking level. And we knew that Haney was just going to hand him an ass whooping. But like I said, Garcia Tank, Haney Loma, Josh Taylor, Teofimo, that ended up happening. And then you got the Inoue Fulton fight. And then we have coming up this Saturday with the Crawford versus Spence fight. And then even after that, it's not where it ends. 7 months into the year, we don't end with Spence and Crawford. It is it is the biggest fight of the year. 100% the biggest fight of the year, right? No doubt in my mind, the biggest fight of the year is Spence Crawford. Nothing that comes after. The only fight that I would think that might live up to the hype would be Usyk versus Fury. I think if that fight happened, that could live up to the hype, the same hype that Crawford and Spence are at. But we're 7 months in, and boxing has just absolutely given us week after week after week of just amazing fights, right? And we can't deny as boxing fans, we're getting everything we wanted. August is going to bring us Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez, and Emmanuel Navarrete is my favorite fighter. So I'm highly anticipating that fight August 12th. That's going to be amazing. Then I think the Sonny Edwards versus Bam Rodriguez fight has been announced to be in August. You got the Canelo Charlo fight in September. You got the Usyk Dubai fight in September. So we're going to get all the way up. The first 9 months of the year, we're going to get amazing fucking fights, man. We're going to get great fight after great fight. And I know August is filled with even more fights, but I don't want to get too far ahead of schedule and off track on who's coming up. I just want to kind of point out the even bigger fights are going to be happening in those months. So if we didn't get another big fight after September, as boxing fans, we would have to be satisfied to say this by far has been the best year in over 2 decades for boxing. Not a decade, 2 decades. At least 2 decades of boxing that we haven't gotten to see this level of competition going after each other the way they are. And I think as boxing fans, man, we're just overwhelmed. We're happy with what we're seeing. We're happy that these big fights are getting done. Of course, there could be more done in boxing. But right now, you got to be happy with what you're seeing. And we can only hope that they end the year as well as they started the year. That October, November, December, we're going to get some big fights announced for those months. And even if we don't, man, we can go into 2024 knowing that there's going to be some good fights set up in 2024, man. You might get Spence versus Crawford 2. In 2024, you're going to get Canelo possibly fighting. I would love it if Canelo would fight Benavidez in the second half or in the first half of 2024. Get that fight out of the way. That would be amazing. I honestly look forward to, hopefully, before this year is over, hoping we can get a Benavidez versus David Morrell fight. Benavidez doesn't need to take that fight. It's a very high risky fight. for him to take. But man, what a year it would be if you could get that fight on the fight schedule. Those two big fucking guys at 168 battling it out to be pretty much the number one contender in that weight division. David Morrell is a hell of a fighter, man. He's right there with David Benavidez, I think, with the power, the size, and everything like that. But, man, we could only be privileged to see that. Oh, sorry for the yawning, man. But, man, I had to record this shit twice, and it's getting late as shit, and I've had to add a little too much bourbon, bruh. Little too much bourbon. But let's jump into, like I said, the domino effect of that. What's going on right now? You got to give credit to Wilder and Fury for that, in my opinion. The Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fight, that happened 5 years past its due date. We were robbed of a super fight. Even if you called it a super fight, it was a fucking dud. Wasn't anything exciting about the fight. Pacquiao chased around Floyd the whole damn fight. Wasn't anything that we saw that we were like, oh, that's an amazing fight. It was dull and boring. So we were kind of robbed. The expectations for that fight were huge. It was considered a super fight, but I don't consider it what started the domino effect in boxing to get all the shit going that we have now. But let's get into what Spence and Crawford had to do to win this fight, man. Let's start out with Crawford, who I think is an incredible counterpuncher. The best switch guy in boxing, orthodox to southpaw. He can do it in a flick of a hand. In an instant, you see him do it in the middle of a fight when he needs to adjust if he's being attacked, and he's able to counter with those switches that he does. Best counterpuncher in the league and has the most power in the welterweight division, in my opinion. What does he have to do? Number one, be patient. Look for the uppercut from Spence. Coming. I think he should feint to get Spence to throw that uppercut sooner than what he should. You know what I mean? To get him to throw that so he can, because Spence is going to throw that uppercut. So if he can throw those feints to get Spence to throw it a little bit sooner than what he wants and to kind of counter him with those. Look for the big shots. He is the bigger puncher, Crawford is. So I say you take the fight to the dog. You get inside. You showcase that power. You try to get Spence off of his game. Try to get him to chase you a little bit. He likes to throw a lot of punches. So get him to come at you and then find a way to counter the guy, man. And if he can do that, I think Crawford has the best opportunity to win that fight. And Spence, what Spence has to do, establish his jab, of course. I think he should keep his distance, not try to get in a dogfight with Crawford. Go to the body as a bigger puncher. And instead of feinting against Crawford, push and pull. Go in, bounce out, and then try to jump in with a couple combos and look for that big punch, landing that big punch for Spence. Those are the keys I think each guy has to use to utilize the fight. I overall give Crawford the advantage in the fight. I predict that Crawford's going to get a knockout and win this fight. I predict he will win the fight. I just think, man, like I said, he is the best. He adapts better than anybody I've seen in a fight. He switches up better than anybody I've seen. His power has come along with him from the minute he started in the lightweight division, the super lightweight to welterweight. He has carried that, and he's used that power, and it's come up with him, and it seems to only get better as he goes up each division. Of course, we know Spence started in the welterweight division, won all his titles in the welterweight division. Crawford has won belts in every division he's been in. WBO, the ring, in the lightweight division. Then he had the WBO, WBA, WBC, IBO belts, all those belts in his division. In the super lightweight, he unified that division. Then moved up to welterweight to win a belt there. And now, of course, Spence holds 3 of the 4 belts. And then, of course, Crawford holds that 1 belt. So this is a unification fight between these two guys. And like I said, I'm giving Spence the upper hand, man. Not saying, or not Spence, I'm giving Crawford the upper hand. Not saying Spence is not a smart fighter, doesn't have a good ring IQ. He does. Believe it or not, he absolutely does. But Crawford is the smarter fighter, the bigger puncher, the better counter puncher, the better switch up guy. And I just think his overall ring IQ gives him the overall advantage in this fight, man. And I think regardless, Saturday we're going to be in for the best fight of the year. We're going to get a Spence Crawford 2 no matter what, who wins this fight. If Crawford loses, if Spence loses, we're going to get a part 2 of this fight. So let's hope we see just a bang out brawl. You know, these guys just going out there and giving us the best possible fight that they can give us so that we know that fight 2 is going to be another great fight so that we can possibly get another awesome fight before the end of the year or the beginning of 2024 on that part, man. Uh, Man, I want to get into boxing news. I haven't looked at a lot this week. I want to tell you the undercard on that Spence Crawford fight, but does anybody really care who the fuck's fighting on that undercard when all we want to see is the two guys on the main card? I will get into the undercard next week on on the results and all that, and I'll talk more about it, who fought on the undercard, all that fun stuff. I'll talk about the Strata fight more next week and all that fun stuff. But let's take a shot together, man. Let's end this show. This is episode 5. We're going to call this the year of the super fight, man. Boxing's just giving us everything we want, and let's just hope it continues to do that throughout the 2023, and we end it really, really strong the way we started it. Smaller shot for me, man. I ain't trying to take a big shot, just a smaller shot to end the show. Like I said, thank you guys for joining me. I'm your host, Jeff. This is Bourbon and Boxing, where we drink bourbon, we talk boxing, and it's what we do best, man. So continue to join me every week, every Friday for a new show. My editor is down, so I won't be doing any editing to the show. I'll just be downloading it just how it is. So you guys are going to get just a raw version of it for this time until I can figure that out. But like I said, continue to join me every week for the latest boxing news, for the latest boxing results, schedule, fights, all that fun stuff, man. I'm not a professional. I don't get paid by anybody. I just do this shit as a hobby, bro. So what you're getting from me is just my opinion. Don't take too much of it to heart, but don't hesitate to comment on the bottom what your thoughts are, and tell me what you think about what's going on and what you might like to hear me talk more about, man. So get with me. Even tell me what you're drinking on, bro. If you're watching the show and you're drinking with me, tell me what you're drinking on, and we'll drink it together. Or I'll give it a shot. As long as it's bourbon. I don't fuck with anything outside of bourbon. I don't do any vodka, White Claws, bullshit like that. I don't fuck with that type of shit. Mixed drinks. Just give me some bourbon and we'll be good. So if you're drinking a good bourbon that I haven't had on my show, you'd think I should try, shout it out to me, man. I'll give it a try for sure. But let's take this shot and let's wrap this show up, man. Episode 5, the monster, or not the monster, but the year of the super fight. Anyways, I'm your host, Jeff. Thank you guys for joining me, man. Have a good night.